Hey, welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Stories Worth Sharing. So excited to share Emee with you today. Emee is so smart. She wrote 3 best-selling books on Amazon, started college when she was 15, and she has a beautiful story about how she was able to let go of her ego, one of her life lessons, and find happiness in a career in assisting others. So stay listening. That beautiful story is coming up next. Emee, so happy you're here today. Hey, thank you for taking time out of your beautiful day. And whether people are listening to this on our YouTube channels or while following it on our podcast, we truly do appreciate the audience. And you and I met because of our podcast group. So we're excited to bring this story. As you know, we connected because I have this playlist on my channel called Spiritual Stories Worth Sharing. And there truly are people from around the world, and you're from Greece. So this is about as around the world as you could get. It's 5 o'clock where you are, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning here. And we're going to be sharing your story today of how you went through this experience, which I'll let you share, and where you are today with it. And hopefully you can share your process and your intention out to the world. So Emee, so thank you for taking your dinner hour with me.
Well, thank you for having me, Jeannie. I feel so blessed, and I do appreciate the opportunity to share my story with your audience.
So let's start, I guess. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? I know you have this beautiful academia story behind you. You're a doctor, PhD, I think. So let's find out kind of what happened, where you are. Tell us a little backdrop story. I'd love to share it.
Sure. Well, I'm originally from the Philippines, and I started my career in academia. I'm a psychologist by training. Wasn't really my original plan. I wanted to be a medical doctor to begin with. So after high school, I got into med school, but I was 15 years old at that time, and my mom said, "You are young to enter med school. Maybe you should do a pre-med course first. And if after your pre-med course you still want to become a doctor, then go ahead and become a doctor." So that's how I ended up taking psychology as my pre-med course.
Did you say 15?
Yes, I was 15. I
Okay,
skipped
so I thought, wait a
levels.
minute. No, I must have heard that wrong. Okay, I would be able to concentrate the rest of the interview if I didn't understand that you were saying 15. Okay, keep going. This is
Yes, yes. So,
fascinating.
so I can completely understand, my mom's, because she said, okay, you maybe academically you are ready, but emotionally, socially, spiritually, you might not be able to handle the stresses of med school. And she says, what happens if you lose a patient? You are technically a child. So I listened to her. I did psychology as a pre-med course, finished it in 4 years, and I completely enjoyed it. So instead of going into med school, I ended up doing my post grad instead. I did my master's and my PhD, moved to London, and that's where I did my training. Again, my intention, again, all these intentions, like I have plans and, God has some other plans. But my intention was to do my master's for 1 year and go back to the Philippines and set up my private practice.
Okay.
But when I was there in the UK, my supervisor asked me, "So why don't you do a PhD with us? Why don't you carry on and do some more training here?" And I said, "Look, I cannot afford it. Like London
Yeah.
is very expensive. It's outside of our budget." And he said, "How much do you need to spend a month?" So I said, "Rent, transport, food." We listed all of my expenses, and he said, "I think I can afford to pay you as my research assistant." It's like, what? so he offered me a job to be his research assistant. And I was also offered a scholarship to do my PhD there. So that was just a huge blessing. And even until now, I'm really grateful for my supervisor. Actually, our arrangement was, okay, you work with me for 6 months, okay? That will cover your expenses after six. So my original intention of staying in the UK for just a year ended up becoming 18 years.
Oh my
Right. So
gosh. Okay.
and now that I look back in my life, I think the reason why I ended up in the UK and stayed for that long is because I was meant to meet my husband,
Okay. I
who
love
I
happy
met.
endings.
Yes, I met my husband in London. He came to visit his friend. We met, we got along instantly. And few years down the line, we had a family, had a baby. So that's why I ended up staying in the UK for so long.
Got it.
So, that was the ego talking, although my intuition tells me you're meant for something else. You're meant to do something else, something beyond academia. So I ignored that. I carried on with my academic work.
So many people that I work with when I'm teaching intuition, how do you tap in? How do right or wrong, right? When you're listening and when you're not listening. When you're looking at that period of your life where you started to say, are you feeling, you said contained, and I get that, but are you also feeling like not satisfied, unhappy, wanting and yearning for more? And so your body is kind of responding that way. Is that,
Oh yeah, so
yeah.
that's actually what happened next.
Okay.
So I ignored that. I had this feeling that there's more, that I feel quite trapped and that I'm not achieving my fullest potential. Even in academia, I felt like a rebel
Okay.
because I'm considered a critical psychologist. Critical psychologists tend to not necessarily criticize, but challenge academic norms. For academics, we're supposed to be detached from feelings, we're supposed to be objective, everything should be measured. But for critical psychologists, we recognize that we are human, we have thoughts, feelings, emotions, there's context, we are connected with the outside world, we have this deep sense of purpose. While that was going on in my career, I also started getting unwell physically. I was starting to get vertigo. I was getting IBS. I was itchy all the time. So, my body was starting to deteriorate,
Yes.
and until the point when I gave birth to my son. So you would think I gave birth, why, happy days, a celebration. And yes, for a time I was really happy that my son was born, that I have my family. It's such a blessing to have him. But at the same time, I started experiencing postnatal depression.
Okay.
Maybe it was the hormones, but I really spiraled into postnatal depression to the point when I became suicidal. I was having suicidal thoughts almost every day. I actually lost my diary now. I used to keep my notes of how often I cry and how often I have suicidal thoughts, and it was almost every day. For some reason, it disappeared on my iPad
Or
last
did
year,
it?
maybe.
Or did it?
Ooh, I don't know. I couldn't find it anymore. But it was at that point
Yeah.
that I really started to question whether life was worth living. When I was at home, I felt insecure that I wasn't working because before I gave birth to my son, I could just spend the whole time at work. That's the only thing that I had to do. But when I gave birth to my son, my priority shifted, and it made me question my identity. I used to be this career obsessed, academic whose sole focus is to be academically excellent. But now that is being challenged. I experienced institutional racism as well. At that point, someone coming back from maternity leave, I really did struggle, and my mental health just really spiraled out of control.
So let me acknowledge that for you too, because here you are in that profession of helping people with like similar, issues, I'm sure, right? And then it rears its head for you. So I know as a healer, when I got sick, I was like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be helping people heal. How can I be sick? And it really made me question my own, if I can't heal myself, what do I do? And that whole thing. So were you going through that kind of identity too?
Yes, absolutely. And it was quite ironic because 3 years before I gave birth to my son, I did some research with migrant nurses in the UK, and I was hearing their stories. And my agenda really was to hear about what was it like to live in the UK, to work as a nurse from overseas. Do you get homesick?
Yeah.
How is the training? Do you struggle with the language and so on? So my agenda was quite superficial. But when they started talking about their experiences, they started talking about institutional forms of racism. And I started to question whether this is real. And I was thinking it's 20, what year did I do that work? It's around 2014, 2013, around that time. So it's not possible for this to happen. And I started writing my notes. I was generating themes like everyday micro, forms of racial aggression,
Yes.
and I started putting them on my wall. When I analyze data, I have little post-it notes and I put them on the wall so I can see patterns
Yeah.
of their experiences. And then 5 years down the line, when I started experiencing it myself, I went back to that wall. It was almost as if it was a warning for me that this is happening, you're putting it on your wall. And I ignored it. It just stayed there. Maybe I was seeing it from my subconscious every time I entered my office. It was just there warning me of what's to come.
Yeah.
And when I was really down in my depression and I was really feeling uh, I don't really want to say abused because I don't want to take on this victim persona, but that was a wake up call for me that it is time to move on. This is not working for me anymore. I should have listened to my intuition to begin with, because I think that's what happens when we try to move with our ego and take our own path because our ego dictates and society dictates that this is what we need to do. Our intuition asks us gently to go this way. And if we say, no, no, I know what I need to do. I have my free will. I'm going to do whatever I want. We go that way and we come back bruised and battered like,
It's
okay,
so
I'm
funny.
sorry.
Right before we got on today, I was doing a YouTube short and I was talking about listening to your intuition and teaching it. And I was saying really quick, and it's a good place to kind of put this in because we're having that discussion. It's math. How do you know when you're listening and you're not listening? When the odds are stacked either for you or against you, it's do the math, right? It's that simple. So let's take a pause for a second and kind of make a statement out to people who might be going through a similar experience, seeing signs of burnout and disconnection and, not feeling joy and feeling the drudge of going and feeling contained. How would you kind of sure up what you're saying in a message out to somebody who might be watching this? How would
Sure.
you direct?
Yeah, when you are feeling as if you are stuck in a rut and you have this sense of this is not worth it, the best thing to do is to stay still. Just to be quiet, to listen to the voice. If you cannot hear it, for me, what worked was I felt as if I've hit rock bottom, and I had to reach out to someone else.
Yeah.
So that acceptance of I cannot do this on my own. I have to let go of my ego trying to solve everything on my own. You have to get past that. And if you can reach out to someone, if you cannot hear it from within, if you can reach out to someone for support, whether it is a healer, for me, it was a friend who referred me to a therapist.
Got it.
That particular friend, when I told her what's going on, she was absolutely shocked when I told her that I was having suicidal thoughts regularly, because you will see me come in the office. You can see me smiling and I'm a very happy,
Wired.
giggly, bubbly person. And no one would have a clue that I'm going through these, through this dilemma in my mind. So when I told my friend about this, she was absolutely shocked. She said, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I said, I actually wasn't even sure what was going on. It's almost as if it happened
It's an
slowly.
undertow. It's an
Yes, yes.
undertow. And I love what you're saying in the sense that bringing awareness to suicidal thoughts. They call it the silent killer. And because people can't, they keep it secrets. They don't want people to know. They're afraid of, what would happen if they did tell people. And so I love your bringing that to clarity for other people too.
Yeah, but I
So
have to say, Jean, it for me it wasn't as if I was embarrassed about it. I'm a psychologist, so for me there's no shame in
good point.
admitting that you're having suicidal thoughts, or that that you're struggling with your mental health. For me, I was downplaying it, or maybe I was in denial of the severity of it all. But
Good point.
for me, I knew that it was serious because the day before that, I actually went to the spot where I was going to take my own life. I was 2 minutes away from doing what I was there. I was there. And the only thing that stopped me was my phone started ringing, and it was my husband who was looking for me. So I was missing for a couple of hours already, and my husband didn't know where I was because I went there ready to do it. And my phone rang, and that sort of woke me up. It shook me. It's like, what am I doing? If I did this, what's going to happen to my son? And in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm nothing. If I disappear, it's okay. The world will keep revolving, and I'm useless. I'm nothing. Even if I take my own life, it's nothing. But then again, it made me realize that I may be nothing to almost everyone, but to my son, who relies on his mother, he needs me. And even if you think that, okay, he has a father, we have a wonderful extended family, he'll be taken care of, he will be traumatized
Yes.
if he knew what his mother did
Yes.
for life. He will be scarred for life, and I owe it to him to grow up with a mother who's alive and well, and who will be there to see him grow up. So that's what shook me. That's the point where I've hit rock bottom, and it made me realize that this is not this is not normal. This is not how it should be. I've been downplaying it. I wasn't really sure if I had to make a big deal out of it. It was a big deal. And that's how I started reaching out for help. And
So,
I got help.
so Emmy, that day, when you got the call from your husband, did you have that kind of aha moment? And did you come home and say to him, this is where I was, this is what I was contemplating, or did you keep that all?
I did. I kept that a secret for a while. I didn't want him to worry.
Yeah.
And even with my extended family, I didn't want them to worry. But I did reach out to my friend, who's also a psychologist. And interestingly enough, we've had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. And she said that she was actually also depressed at that time. She was taking medication. So she knew what it was like. I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah.
know that she was depressed at that time as well. So, we got together. She supported me, and at the time, I didn't know that I was supporting her, but we were supporting her at that time as
Are
well.
you still connected today?
Yes,
I
yes,
love
we
that.
are still connected. I mean, she's based in the UK. We are here in Greece, and we still get in touch, and make sure that we are both okay. So
So
I
let's,
got the help that I needed because of that.
yeah, so let's move into from that. And first off, acknowledging how hard that must have been. So you recognize, you reach out to your friend, you get the help, you're in therapy, take me to the bridge of leaving the job and starting where you are today, and what do you do today that helps people? What's your process? And can people work with you? What's your intention now, and how fulfilled are you? I want to get into that aspect because I
Yes.
really want people to watch this, or listen to this, to have a point of inspiration that says, if she can do it, I can. So take us
I
there, Emmy. I would love that.
I have to say, Jeannie, this is gonna sound so magical, as in it sounds so miraculous. So I got into therapy. I started healing myself. My body also started showing signs of recovery. And that started when I've made my decision to exit. So
Okay.
I wasn't actually exiting immediately. I was going to have an exit plan. It was the year 2018 when I started thinking about, okay, I need an exit strategy. I need to accumulate around 30,000 pounds over the next 2 years so I could quit my job, just to get started and quit my job. So I set out that intention in January 2018. This is my exit strategy. I started writing my books. I'm traditionally published anyway, as you know, as an academic, but I knew that if I wanted to reach the masses, if I wanted to reach lay audiences and use psychology as a way to help those who might be having mental health issues or postnatal depression, as I've experienced, I could write books that are easy to read, easy to understand, no jargon whatsoever. But if I'm going through the traditional publishing route, it would take me 2 to 3 years
Got
to
it.
get that out. So I opted to learn. So
How
January 2018, I had my 2 year exit strategy, and I said I need 30,000 pounds to build so I could exit my job. All right. So here's the magical part. 3 months later, I got an email from our institution that says that you can take voluntary severance and we will give you 30,000 pounds if you quit your job. And I'm thinking, how is this happening?
I
How
wish you
is
had
this
said
happening?
50.
How is this? Yes, I know, right? So, I could have, yes, I could have generated the amount of money that I asked for in 2 years. All I have to do is save little bits every month and I will get there in 2 years. But universe said, why wait? Here it is. If you want to quit your job now.
Yeah. Love
so
it.
so that's what happened. So I managed to take that route.
Where are you had your child, 8 years. So how old are you at this point?
I am nearly 40.
Okay. Okay.
I am
I
nearly 40.
got it.
Yeah, yeah. So I get asked that question. I mean, I have to say, when I was doing my PhD, people thought I was 7 years old or something like that because I had such a baby face. But yeah, it was just so incredible that and even at that point, when that opportunity came, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's like everything was planned, that I didn't really of course I asked for it, and I even gave a specific amount and a time frame so I could quit. But it's almost like, why do you have to wait 2 years? If you want it, here it is. If you don't want it, you don't have to take it. But you said you want it, so here it is. But now I know that I'm using my skills. I now help other healers. I help people who have this big message that they want to share to the world, but they just couldn't find the confidence. So I'm putting my psychology hat on and helping them to overcome self doubt and to get their message out to the readers who need to read their books, to who need to hear their message. I know how Amazon works now, and I'm able to help them get their books out and get the readers find their books. And I absolutely love supporting people in this way and making an impact in this way.
Don't you think the timing to COVID really, Zoom, working at home, I mean, office buildings are closing, we have become so much more accessible. I mean, we were already online before with the internet and everything, I know, but now less travel, right? So everybody's open and able to work online. I mean, I'm interviewing you from across the world, so I love the technology that we have. And it's also opened the door, with Amazon for publishing and Audible and, podcast, right? There's so many ways to get our information out there. So, hey, let's keep moving. We tell people how they work with you. I would like you to share your books. I'll put all the links below. The perfect client for you. It sounds like you do some healing, but also doing the entrepreneur piece. So take us to the two 10 aspects of people that you help so people can reach right out to you.
Sure. Well, generally for the lay audience, I have my books on Amazon called Psychology in Your Life. So it's essentially using all of the things that I've learned in psychology over the past 25 years in presenting them in simple terms so you can use them in your everyday life. So I have Change Your Life for Good, Imposter Syndrome Remedy, and Fear is Not My Enemy. So I have to say, particularly during COVID times, and so many people changing career paths or trying something new, fear is not my enemy is something that can really help them to overcome that fear, especially when you're facing a lot of changes in your life. You want to do something, but the fear is stopping you. Fear is not something that fear is not your enemy. That's what I have to say. It reminds you that sure there are risks,
Yeah.
there are things that you have to be mindful of, but you still have to get on with it if you want to get somewhere. So it's not your enemy. It's just letting you know that this is a possibility, but there are ways around it. You know, you can ask for help, and you can set up precautions so you don't have so you can minimize the risks.
Yeah.
That's what I have to say.
Perfect.
So I do
Okay.
have my books, but I have to say, Jeannie, the thing that lights me up now is helping online entrepreneurs, particularly life coaches, healers, business coaches, and so on, who have this message that they want to share with the world, but they are afraid. Well, either afraid that they're not good enough to write a book, or they just don't know how to do it. You know, they know that writing a book could help so many others because they have the skills, the knowledge, the expertise that could benefit other people. But if they are thinking, who's gonna listen to me? I'm nobody, I'm not an expert. Or if they're thinking, I haven't got a clue how to publish, or I haven't got a clue how to get my book out there, how are people going to find my work? That's where I come in. And I have to say, I have students, for example, one of my star students, Wendy, she's a pet bereavement counselor. And she talks about pet loss all the time, and how it is disenfranchised grief,
Yeah.
that when people lose their pet, they feel as if they couldn't really grieve or talk about it. And she comes out there with her book, letting people know that it is okay to grieve, and to mourn the loss of your pet, and there are ways to cope with it healthily. And for me to be able to help her get her message out, and help those people who are grieving for the loss of their pet, that's a win for me. And
And what a
I
rocket.
do.
I love it. That's a lot for our listeners to absorb too. So I love your story. So let's do this. So we're getting ready to wrap up because that's a lot of information for people to absorb. When you knew I was going to interview today, and we've talked so much, you'll be surprised at how much is in here. Did I miss anything? We wanted to make sure that people knew that you'd, gone through a process, that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that there's ways to navigate this. You've got some books that can help them. And especially to those people who are watching, who have a story to share and to tell. I coached women for years in starting businesses. So most of my following are that. So I love that you've given that a name and people can reach out to you for publishing their book. Have I missed anything? Have we missed anything before we head into our rapid fire?
I think one of the messages that before we finish that I
Yeah.
want to share, especially for those who are listening to this, if you do have a message that you want to share with the world, and if you're just experiencing self doubt, if you feel that you're not good enough, or if you feel that you don't know how to write and self publish a book, or whoever, you're not even sure if anyone's going to read your book, you have to let go of that and remember that whatever information or message that you have, no matter how small you think it is, that little bit of information could be the tipping point
Yeah.
for someone else. And if you are that person who has that message, and if you're keeping it to yourself, it is you owe it to those people who need it, to let it out and let go of your self doubt, because those people need it more than you do.
Self-worth. I love it. That is so important. And I know there's about 100 people out there raising their hand going right now, like, yes, that's me. So thank you so much, Emmy. And that is literally your last little beautiful spiritual message, which was my next question. So I think we're ready to, you know what? I think we're ready to slide into rapid fire. So right now the music's kicking up. I get to say thank you so much for your time today. So whether people are listening to this on YouTube or following it on our podcast, we truly do appreciate the audience. So let's roll up and roll out with some fun activity. Ready? Let's do this. One word answers. What is your favorite spiritual book that you would like to offer other people?
Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill.
Oh, love that. Mastermind groups. There you go. If you were going to change the world today, what does the world need in order to be changed?
Compassion.
Couldn't agree with you more. Just did a whole video on it. I'll tag it here. There we go. Lesson. Everybody has life lessons in their life. We seem to kind of stay in the life lesson of, what do you think your life lesson has been?
It's to let go of your ego. Because and listen to your intuition, because for me it's the ego that had really held me back, so I have to let it go and just follow your intuition.
Oh, as an intuitive teacher, I love that for an answer. I love that. What do you love about yourself, Emee?
That I am blessed. I don't know what it is, but I just feel deeply, truly blessed, and I'm grateful for that.
I agree. We all agree. What are you doing when you're experiencing joy?
When I play with my son and having cuddles every morning. That's probably my most joyful point in the day. Like I wake up and I give my son a cuddle. It's just awesome.
I love it. So thank you so much today. I appreciate you sharing your light, your energy, your dinner hour with us. So to everybody who's watching, we will see you next video. And thank you, Emee, so much for today. I appreciate you.